You don't know AMD's lying yet. You haven't benched. Anyway, what this is replying to? Well, a while back, I reported on these graphs that AMD released when discussing their new 5900 XT and 5800 XT processors, and by new, that's kind of stretching the word. These were just slight clock speed revisions to CPUs that basically already existed. For example, the 5900 XT is basically a 5950X with a extremely minor clock speed downgrade due to this was probably extra silicon they had that just couldn't quite make it as a 5950X, so you might as well release a new product SKU to sell it rather than just have garbage silicon that's not being used. Perfectly reasonable idea as long as the price is right, unless you try to claim that it's as fast or even faster than a 13700K in gaming performance. And it's just flat out not, which because we already knew that a 5950X, which was exactly the same thing with actually slightly higher clock speeds, was not anywhere near as fast in gaming as a 13700K. I and many other channels rightly pointed out that these were absolutely horrible slides from AMD, but apparently you don't know AMD is lying yet, you haven't benched. So, you know what, honestly guys, I'm not a CPU reviewer, so I still haven't benched. However, Hardware Unboxed has now benched. So, the benching has been completed, and what is the results of the benching? The benching has shown that indeed the 5900 XT is incredibly close to a 5950X in gaming performance, which indeed concludes that the 13700K is about 34% faster in gaming than the 5900 XT, which is completely fine. That's completely reasonable and what everyone should have expected if AMD hadn't released this stupid chart. So how did AMD get away with outright lying about the gaming performance? Well, if you look at the footnotes for this slide deck, it's because they released it, this testing being done with a GPU chosen to result in GPU limited benchmarks, essentially saying that if you have a low-end GPU, you become GPU limited, therefore processors with completely different gaming performance perform roughly the same. Hey, in this one, we got a slight margin of error advantage for our CPUs, so let's show that one. Cool. Anyway, so yeah, this was basically outright lies, and if you were wondering if the 5800 XT could somehow match a 13600KF, which of course it absolutely shouldn't, then Hardware Unboxed today released some evidence showing that indeed the 13600K is 33% faster in gaming than the 5800 XT. So, now that the benching has been completed, can we all just agree, yes, AMD was outright lying about the gaming performance of these processors, and I have no idea why they thought that would be a good thing. If they think that bad publicity is still good for business, I don't know. But considering AMD in the CPU space right now is just absolutely dominant with all of the issues that Intel has been having, it just seems completely insane for AMD to want to do something where they're just obviously shooting themselves in the foot. It's like they just find some way of making themselves look bad when they're already winning. So snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, they get to now be accused of lying in first-party benchmarks when they just didn't need to. Just release the silicon without silly performance claims, and away you go. But yes, the benching is done, and there we are with that. Now, AMD also is apparently struggling in the well, the headline here says GPU sales are officially plummeting, but when I read a little farther into this, we have to be careful because it's the gaming segment that is plummeting, which does include Radeon GPUs, but it's not as simple as Radeon GPUs dropping 59% year on year, although the gaming segment is. So this, if you look a little bit more carefully, it's the gaming division that has dropped 59%, and AMD is mostly pointing to the semi-custom silicon, which would be more like what would be used in consoles like the PlayStation 5. So it's more likely that that a lot of these dips are actually related to the console business being in decline, rather than the Radeon GPUs. However, there's also evidence that the Radeon GPU division isn't doing great either. So hopefully all of that can turn around as we maybe get into the next generation of products. We'll have to see. However, not everything has been poor news for AMD lately. I talked about in a recent video that AMD's Fluid Motion Frames 2 had been released and claimed to have made some massive improvements, especially the fact that it would just no longer give up. This is the driver level frame generation that could be applied to almost any game, not needing direct integration, but that leads to a bit of a lower quality, although again, it gets to support in a whole bunch of other games. But with that lower quality implementation with AMD Fluid Motion Frames 1, it would just often give up in fast motion scenes, probably because there was too large of a difference between the images in two frames, to get a quality interpolation. AMD Fluid Motion Frames 2 is much less likely to do that, and Digital Foundry just today has released some of their initial analysis of it, and we're generally positive on the overall quality results. I would like to do some in-depth testing on this myself, but as you guys know, I have been in the process of moving and selling my old house and getting that ready to clean up, so I've just some of the more in-depth testing that I would like to do on the channel has had to be a bit put off, at least for now. Hopefully I'll get around to that at some point. Now, on the note of frame generation in every game, there is also the Lossless scaling app that can do that for pretty much any GPU rather than just through the AMD driver, so that's kind of cool. However, apparently they've already released a ×3 frame generation feature. We're seeing here that soon they'll be able to quadruple frame rate. So the idea here is that rather than just inserting one interpolated frame between two actual rendered frames, you could insert 2 or 3 or 4, or hey, I guess the sky's the limit as far as you want to go with it. You have to see what the overall quality is like. I'm seeing this reported at WCCF Tech, but it looks like that it's coming from YouTuber Viathane. I might be mispronouncing that, showcasing the 4x frame rate mode. Now, again, with all of these frame generation techniques, it is always important to note that you are not making games become more responsive in the way that would generally be associated with a higher frame rate. You are getting increased motion fluidity with some trade-off to image artifacts and latency. So do be aware, and that is always something to keep in mind. Also, AMD does have some positive news with their new 890M integrated GPU on their Strix APUs, because with these out now, you can see some interesting testing. It's looked like some testing has been done to be more like, what would this look like in a really power-limited device? Like, what if these get into handheld gaming PCs, that kind of thing? So in a 17-watt mode, when placed up against Intel's integrated Arc GPUs at 28 watts, it's actually significantly outperforming the 28-watt plus Arc GPU when only limited to 17 watts. So that's pretty cool. Again, I'm finding this at WCCF Tech, but it is coming from Tech Epiphany on YouTube. And again, you're seeing significantly higher performance on the more power-limited AI9HX370 with the 890M mobile GPU when compared to the Intel Arc counterparts. It'll be interesting to see if Intel's next generation of Xe2 GPUs end up being better. But Intel's struggling with a lot right now, so we do have some more information on the Intel whole stability debacle on their 13th and 14th gen CPUs. Now, Intel has been unclear on exactly which CPUs have a 2-year extended warranty. Now, to be clear, that's not a 2-year warranty, that's an extending the original warranties for 2 additional years. They initially made a post implying it would be for boxed CPUs as well as tray CPUs, but then edited that post to then make it look like it's just boxed CPUs. But now I saw this WCCF Tech headline saying that it's also going to be on OEMs and tray CPUs. But then when I read further down, it's saying that they have learned that, meaning WCCF Tech has learned that that's the intention, but it's from their sources. So their source, in other words, this has not been officially claimed by Intel yet, so be very careful. Also, even if your warranty is extended and you are within warranty, are you actually going to be able to make a good warranty? Will you get an RMA from Intel without issues? Because I'm starting to see a large number of posts on Reddit like this one, where we're seeing Intel denying a lot of RMA claims for instability. In this case, this one's particularly well documented, which is why I'm featuring it here, but there's a number of posts like this, where this post kind of started blowing up and ended up getting a revision from Intel, possibly as a result of it having blown up online. But anyway, they were saying that they had two 14900K RMAs for instability, and Intel stated they would confiscate or destroy them if they proceed with the warranty process, because Intel was claiming that these were remarked products and not genuine. But the problem is that they were genuine. They were purchased, one from Amazon and one from Micro Center, completely legitimately, and that there didn't seem to be any reason why that they would be unofficial or rebadged or any kind of fraud going on. However, they have screenshots of their conversation with Intel about the warranty process and the RMA. And they're saying that, however, we are not fully convinced that it will pass the incoming fraud inspection at our depot, and we strongly recommend that you return the product to your place of purchase. And they were saying that the case has been canceled and the processor marked 0296 has been identified as a remarked product. Your warranty request for this product is respectfully denied, as Intel's limited warranty only covers valid Intel products. Anyway, you could follow, all my sources will be linked in the video description, so you could certainly follow this for more information. But it looks like Intel was definitely giving a lot of trouble for this user trying to process this. Now, after their Reddit post blew up, it looks like Intel followed up and apologized, saying, "We apologize for the back and forth interactions. It is our responsibility to investigate potential fraudulent transactions. Based on our second analysis of the evidence you have provided, we believe your units are valid. And if you agree to proceed with the warranty, I will create one RMA for both units. Blah, blah, blah. Once again, we apologize for the confusion. Appreciate your understanding. I will remain attentive." Okay. So the point is that a lot of users seem to be reporting rejections to their RMA process. And then again, when the Reddit post blows up, Intel, as a result of the backlash from this, has gotten back to me with a second review and determined that both CPUs are indeed valid. So unless your Reddit post blows up to thousands of upvotes, maybe you're going to get your warranty claim rejected. However, lots of people are processing them okay, but I think it's really important for Intel right now that if they're going to try to make good on this situation at all, which is going to be very hard to do, that they have a very easy warranty claim process and don't reject stuff like this, because honestly, they're just their whole situation looks so bad that they absolutely need to at least try to make as good on it as they possibly can, given how bad this is, especially in light of the multiple class action lawsuits that are currently at least being investigated. And we'll see if they go ahead and move forward. I had already reported on one class action lawsuit, but apparently a second law firm has begun a class action lawsuit investigation about the Intel 14th and 13th gen instability issues. The initial one I reported on was from Abington, Cole, and Ellery, but now it's looking like Kaplan Gore, which is also a class action firm, has decided to also start investigating whether or not they have need for a class action lawsuit. Now, in the end, users don't end up getting much of the money out of the class action lawsuit, but it is a way of putting pressure on companies and kind of punishing them for having done something bad enough to warrant a class action lawsuit. So that's being looked at. Now, again, if Intel does a good job of taking care of people with the instability issues and making that right with them, that's one thing. But again, if people are getting their claims rejected for nonsense reasons, that looks pretty bad. And I think we could have more reason for these lawsuits to perhaps move forward. But anyway, how about some Nvidia news? Well, do we have confirmation that the RTX 5090 will run on an 850 watt power supply? Well, it kind of looks like yes, at least according to CoolerMaster. Now, whether CoolerMaster knows the power requirements for a 5090 this far in advance, I don't know. But it's being reported at videocards.com that the Amazon page for this product, the CoolerMaster X Silent Edge Platinum 850 fanless ATX 3.1 fully modular PSU, does specifically support in RTX 5090, as well as the 4090. Now that's interesting because this isn't some third-party listing or anything like that. This is coming from the official CoolerMaster store post on Amazon, which means this is a direct claim from CoolerMaster that this 850 watt power supply does support the 5090. So that's pretty interesting, but again, does it actually mean anything? I don't know, but it's at least some evidence that 850 watt power supplies could support the RTX 5090, and according to an official post from CoolerMaster, supposedly it does. So there is that. In other Nvidia news, I've reported on this before, but there's starting to be more and more evidence that this might actually happen. Nvidia could be considering an RTX 4070 with slower memory. This would be GDDR6 memory rather than GDDR6X memory. And where is this coming from? Well, this latest report is coming from Tom's Hardware, but where are they getting their information from? This is coming from MegaSizeGPU, who has accurately released leaks of Nvidia products in the past. He's saying that there will be a GeForce RTX 4070 with GDDR6 rather than 6X memory, that it will be PG141, SKU 347. And he now is saying the GDDR6 memory might be, so this is not a confirmed, 20 gigabit per second, which would be only a small downgrade from the, I think, 21 gigabit per second GDDR6X on the normal 4070, and saying other specs would remain the same. So if the only change would be going down memory speeds by a little under 5%, then that's not going to be a massive performance difference, but it would be interesting that we'd be getting yet another 4070 SKU, because right now we have, you have the 4070, you have the 4070 Super, you have the 4070 Ti, and you have the 4070 Ti Super. So we're already pretty crowded in the 4070 lineup. Now, why would this be happening? Apparently, the issue has to do with component pricing and supply conditions for the GDDR6X memory. So perhaps it would just be having a slightly slower 4070 is better than not having any 4070s at all if they couldn't get enough GDDR6X memory, at least at a price that makes sense. Now, I wouldn't be super opposed to this happening as long as it came with some kind of a price cut. Where this would be really terrible is if this got launched under basically the same name with no indication that it was a slower GPU. So we'll have to see if this actually happens, and if so, how clearly is it labeled, and does it come with a lower price or anything like that. Now, we're also seeing news that Nvidia could be finally discontinuing the RTX 3060, which is still Steam's most popular graphics card. Now, this is coming from a videocards.com article, which is referencing board channels, where I think it's kind of a Chinese platform where board partners and people in that supply chain discuss things. So this is saying, according to accurate information, whatever that means, Nvidia has indeed announced the discontinuation of production of the RTX 3060 series and has notified all AIC brands to plan the final supply order. Since there is only one batch of GPU supply left for the RTX 3060 series, Nvidia notified the three core systems of Taiwan, Colorful, Tongde, and Bonang to distribute the last batch of GPUs. NV requires AIC brands to place orders for the last planned quantity. According to NV's distribution rules, it will be supplied to AIC brands in batches in the next few months. So again, the 3060 has been the top GPU on the Steam hardware survey for a while now. but it does look like Nvidia could be finally winding that down. Unlike a lot of the other 30 series cards, which I think have already gone out of production, it's looking like 3060 hung on a bit longer, but we could be running out, which is kind of bad for anybody who is wanting a 12 gigabyte graphics card at a reasonable price from Nvidia, because, well, reasonable price is a bit, that's open to interpretation, but at least it was a 12 gigabyte card for less money than the 8 gigabyte 4060 and 4060 Ti. Also, Nvidia could be having some issues with their Blackwell GPUs. Now, this is more for the AI data center side of things, but it's looking like there are shipment delays. And we're seeing the semi-analysis go into a lot of detail on what exactly is going wrong here. So it's looking like there's all sorts of problems with their trying to ramp up massive production on this so quickly. And again, I don't know, for my channel, which focuses more on gaming, I think I'll more just lay off the advanced details of all the things that are going wrong here, but I will just note that semi-analysis has a lot of information here for you, and this will be linked in the video description if you want more details. It's kind of interesting, but I think doesn't quite fit into the niche of the news that I generally deliver. But there's all sorts of things, some of which are issues with NVIDIA's design, and some of which are issues with TSMC's packaging. And both things are combining into potentially several months worth of shipment delays for NVIDIA's Blackwell. And what exactly that means for their business overall is kind of yet to be determined. Now, in other interesting business ideas and financial decisions you could make, NZXT wants you to pay up to $169 a month to rent a gaming PC that you won't end up owning in the long run. Now, what exactly are they offering for $169 a month? Well, you could get a i7-13700KF based system, hopefully without stability issues. By the way, these systems are not necessarily brand new. Some of them are refurbished. And it would come with a 4070 Ti Super, an H7 Flow case, and $169 per month. And with all of that, I think after 2 years, you would be able to upgrade to the next generation type of system. And okay, well, is that really that bad of a deal? Well, I would argue absolutely yes. So first of all, let's say you wanted to keep that for the 2 years it takes to upgrade to the next gen system. Well, you'd be paying $169 a month for 24 months, which comes out to just over $4,000. Now notice that the system that you're getting here, while high-end, isn't top of the line. It's a 13700KF and a 4070 Ti Super in an H7 Flow case. Okay, so if I wanted to go to PC Part Picker and see what we could do here, let's see. I wonder if we could get a 4090. Let's just sort price low to high. Throw one of those in here. Let's go with the current fastest gaming CPU that doesn't have potential stability issues with our 7800X3D. Let's just plop in let's even throw in some overpriced NZXT stuff. Like how about an extremely overpriced cooler from NZXT? Let's just grab an overpriced ROG Strix motherboard. Let's throw in just 32 gigabytes of DDR5 6000 CL30 memory without even looking for a good price on it. Let's throw in a couple terabytes of storage without even looking for a good price on it. And let's go ahead and throw in an NZXT Flow case. All right, so we did it. Oh, we still need a power supply. Let's throw in a 1000-watt power supply without even looking for a good deal on one. There we go. So with absolutely no thought whatsoever, we have created a $3,200 system. And I want to emphasize that this wasn't even searching for good value on anything. I just threw together some random crap on PC Part Picker that had a 4090 and a 7800X3D. And notice we're coming in at almost $1,000 less than what you'll end up paying over 2 years. And not only that, but after 2 years, if you wanted to upgrade this system, you could sell this system and recoup probably a good chunk of the value, because it's not like a 4090 and 7800X3D system would be completely worthless after 2 years. But anyway, I'm just trying to emphasize that you probably shouldn't do this. Anyway, but hey, it is available if you would like to, so there you go. But I think you got my overall thoughts on it. In a few other random little bits of news, I will also throw out that Hardware Unboxed did some interesting updated testing of Windows 10 versus Windows 11 for CPU performance, and did see that in certain games, certain CPUs did perform a lot better under Windows 10. However, that wasn't the case in every game. There were certainly games where there was no meaningful difference between Windows 10 and Windows 11. And again, I will link the video in the description if you want to take a look at all of the games tested and the results. It was pretty interesting that sometimes one CPU would show a major difference while others wouldn't, and sometimes there was no real difference at all. But there are definitely performance differences between Windows 10 and Windows 11, which is kind of interesting. We're also seeing that Lenovo has launched kind of an interesting device. It's a hybrid Windows and Android tablet that contains both an Intel Meteor Lake x86 CPU as well as a Qualcomm Snapdragon processor. So this is really almost actually two entirely different systems in one, where I believe it's basically an Android tablet with a Snapdragon processor that then can clip on to a keyboard attachment that has a x86 Intel CPU with integrated art graphics, and then become a Windows device. But you could also use the screen to run them kind of in a side-by-side mode. And both systems have completely separate processors and memory and RAM storage, all of that. There does appear to be a 10 gigabyte shared storage area where you could access information from both devices, and also the camera module allows Windows to access the photos from the Android device without issues. So it's kind of an interesting product, although I'm not quite sure who it's for. And it also comes in at around $2,200. So here's the overall specs of both systems, because again, it really kind of is two different systems combined into one device. So like I said, interesting, thought I'd mention it, but I'm not quite sure I would have any use for it personally. I don't know if you would. Now, Lenovo's website also hints at a new Legion Go device with a smaller 7-inch display and dual fan cooling, as well as HDMI output. Now, this isn't officially announcing a different Legion Go device, but if you look at the information about Legion Go's, it mentions both a 7-inch and 8-inch display, USB-C, and HDMI, and dual fan cooling systems. Now, those are all things that aren't featured in the normal Legion Go device, indicating that they're updating the product page for a future Legion Go product that isn't yet announced or out there yet. So kind of interesting there. Now, I thought I'd just throw this in there. Apparently, we're getting new rumors of Half-Life 3. Now, apparently, this is being fueled by a Valve project, which is called White Sands. And to be clear, when I actually looked into what information actually exists on this, there's no real indication that this has to be Half-Life 3. There's some indication that there could be some connection to things that would fit into a Half-Life product, but again, there's absolutely no hard evidence that this is guaranteed to be Half-Life 3, although it does, again, seem to have potentially some Half-Life compatible stuff, and it's not a VR project. So anyway, we'll see what's made of that. In kind of just video game news, this kind of hit me because I grew up in the era of like video game actual physical magazines, and Game Informer was around for 33 years. Well, Game Informer is gone. And not only is it not going to be producing more content, the website is gone. So unless you're accessing it through various Internet Archive type sites, like 33 years worth of content is just erased from the internet. And that's kind of rough to process. I guess somebody must have looked at the cost benefit of just leaving that up on a server somewhere versus Like, I doubt like a lot of those super old articles get much traffic, but it's kind of, I don't know, highlighting how sad it is that while the internet does make it easy for information to kind of be accessed forever compared to trying to hunt down physical media, it also makes it really easy for somebody in a business office somewhere to just say, all right, shut it down, and then it's gone. So yeah, there's that. In possibly more exciting news, we do see that Sony Santa Monica Studio could be making its first new IP in over 20 years. Now, this is the division that makes the God of War games, but apparently in a developer at Sony Santa Monica mentioned they've been working at the studio looking after the entire character development pipeline on their new IP. Now, could that possibly be just a slip of the tongue and talking about a new IP being just a future God of War game? I guess that's possible, but it would be interesting to see if Sony Santa Monica got to make an entirely new IP that is not God of War related. We'll see what happens. Now, I'm mentioning this mostly because, again, it does look like most of Sony's first-party titles are going to be eventually at least making it over to PC, so that's pretty interesting. All right, hopefully you guys found today's video useful and or interesting for you, and I hope all of you have an excellent day.